welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending August 16th, 2015. My name is Eric Stromquist. I am your host, and as usual, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome back to another week of Control Talk.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it, and I just wanted to remind myself to say hello to Pat Butler from Carpenters. Pat he watches Control Talk Now and has more recall of our shows, I think, than I do, and he wanted to let me know that he thinks you're one of the top guys in the business, and he really appreciates Control Trends and Control Talk Now.
I really appreciate it. Hey, Pat, thanks so much, man. Appreciate that. We got a lot of great listeners out there. Big Poppy, Little Poppy from Heptus Systems. There are a bunch of them. So listen, we appreciate all our listeners for sure. So, Kenny, man, I tell you what, interesting week for me. I will be speaking next week at the Atlanta Better Business Challenge, which is basically the mayor and the city have gotten together along with the Green Chamber of Commerce, and they are challenging the Atlanta buildings to reduce their energy spend by 20% or more. So I'm really happy about that. It's a really great program here in Atlanta. But, dude, I got to tell you, man, I am super, super stressed out because they got a really interesting, different format that we have to use. So, dude, check this out. And then, again, for our listeners out there, think about me, in terms of I'm usually not short on the words. So this is Japanese format, Kenny. I forget what it's called. I can't pronounce the word. But essentially it's 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide. So the way this thing works is you give me your slideshow. You stand up in front of the room. The images are behind you. The slideshow is behind you, so you can't even see it. And the thing's set up to automatically, every 20 seconds, the slides progress. So think about that. A little bit over 6 minutes. No control. You don't get to hold the PowerPoint holder. You don't get to do any of that stuff. So, buddy, I'll tell you what, this has been kicking my tail. So if any of our listeners out there have done anything like that before, I'd really appreciate your ideas, your input. Again, I forget the name of it, Kenny. It's Japanese.
Jiu-jitsu.
No, Pitsukinsu. I can't pronounce it. I probably have a better chance at winning against a jiu-jitsu master than this. But so anyway, I'll be speaking Wednesday night there. And
I'll tell you, they've come up with a lot of interesting things. I remember that fishbone at Change Management. So it's good to see some refreshing, different inputs from management styles, and it sounds something new and cool.
Well, it's going to be new and cool, but can you imagine, I'm just waiting for one of our listeners out there, viewers, to go, yeah, why don't you guys use that format on Control Talk Now? That sounds like a great idea. You guys, 6.5 minutes would be great. But hey, for you guys and girls, that's Rob Allen, 7 minutes in control. Right, Kenny?
Sure is. All right. Well, then, in the spirit of that hurry up offense, we'll try to pick it up a little bit. But no, sounds really interesting because we know that the attention span of a human being is 10 minutes. It used to be 20, now it's 10, so it's shrinking even faster. And I was talking to a somebody in the business, and she told me it's probably closer to 8 minutes. So that's really cool. So 6 minutes means that you've got a lot of movement, a lot of information. And remember, I'm reading an audio book, so I'm not reading it, I'm listening to it. But it talks about memory, and it's called BrainWorks. And some of the things that I've learned is that you memorize things through your auditory, your sensory, your additional senses involved. So if you get your eyesight involved rather than just listen to it, you get your smell, the olfactory involved, and essentially the touch, you will have a greater possibility of long-term memory and then repetition. But to keep the human mind occupied and interested, you've got to have that kind of presentation now that's not that static, dry, PowerPoint only. In fact, this guy said that PowerPoints they did their job for as long as they could, and they're giving way to new innovations in media. And I think you'd come across one. So that's why.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's actually a cool idea because the deal with the images is you virtually put no text or very little text on the images. So the images sort of have to enhance your story, which is kind of cool. So just going through that thought process, think about what you're going to say in that 20 seconds on the slide, and then having a complementary image behind it. It's a great exercise. It really is. And I've read this book called Presentation Zen before. Highly recommend it. And he talked about this particular format. I think most PowerPoint presentations are way, way too busy. As a matter of fact, There was a report that was released when the Concorde, or the space shuttle crashed, probably 5-10 years back, right? And it was at one little part. And they had done research on it. There were at least, I think, 25 PowerPoint presentations that were given from different parts of that organization where they talked about that being a potential weakness. And I think it just goes to what you were saying, that it's difficult to hold people's attention. And, you and I have debated a lot about it. I know I tell our team that I think the differentiator in the future is not going to be who has the better technology, not who has the better pricing, but the people that have the salespeople or the reps that can communicate in a way that the customer or the client can really understand what you're talking about. And we've talked a lot about that, Kenny. So thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think, absolutely the message, the story, however you want to put it, the reality is that we're very visually stimulated, and I think in our industry we saw the rise of the visualization, graphics projected on color schemed presentation, and how successful that got. I mean, it's so easy to help your mind come to conclusions when you've got that, when you're taking advantage of the technologies that support human comprehension, and those are large, moving, colorful, and instead of those dry little squares of information where you've got little blocks leading, and you got to look down, you can't read the print. If you want to hit with today's professionals, you've got to use things that are designed to accommodate their absorption rates, and that is like you said. So the storytelling now is changing, but you still got to have salespeople. At the end of the day, no matter what kind of product you have, I agree totally that all the products are good. Let's face it, all of them have an amazing feature benefit package, but the story being told to get to the users that are going to make the purchases, the decision makers, they're the conduit, the portals are changing. The times that you get to talk to them, how you talk to them, are addressing, change, so that the sales force constantly has to upgrade their talents and their technologies, their methodologies to get a hold of people. Like you said about sending broadcast facts, like I thought it was really cool using social media. Rob Allen says that once he does a good 7 minutes of in control, then he sends out to his 150 his mailing list of people that do want to know that information. They've signed on, they've agreed to it. So you have to accommodate that. So now, if you were doing stuff old school, you'd be sending out flyers, you'd be sending out emails without the information. You'd be wasting people's time and energy. People are getting 100 emails a day now. And so we're seeing a barrage. Just like Ken St. Clair said, where do you go for the most accurate, condensed, concise, but valid information? And you got to use those are done through referrals again. So here we go. It's going full circle.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting. And so the good news, I think is that you're not going to replace the human being in this interaction. They might be deployed differently or used differently, but I think somebody that can convey a message and do it well and convey concepts and ideas is going to be invaluable. And I'd be very interested in Ken Sinclair's opinion, as well as our other listeners and viewers regarding this, because I tell you what, Kenny, with all the skills that the new generation has that's coming up, the young guns that we're bringing in, okay? And my daughter and my wife, they never, I'm talking about my oldest daughter, Britt, they never have a phone conversation. They text. Now, my daughter, Britt, is very, very articulate. She speaks very well, but I'm wondering, Kenny, if maybe not this next generation coming in, but the generation after them, I'm wondering if the art of conversation is going to be just completely lost. I mean, I wonder if that's going to be a course you're going to have to take in school or a degree that you get, because the way people communicate now is so differently, especially the younger generation. It's, it went from phone calls to emails to text. Now it's tweets. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow? Like we were talking about on the show last week with the technology, things like Google Glasses and things like that. I mean, it could, at some point in time, somebody's going to come along. They're going to read the impulses on your brain. It's going to translate into a text or something, and it'll automatically be transmitted to somebody else. So I'm debating and wondering if, like I say, 10 years from now, they're going to be digging dinosaurs like me and you out saying, hey, teach us how to have a conversation with someone.
Well, I think, I don't know. I think it's like music. what we think might be, a dynamic or a change, it's not really a structural change. It's just simply a new, a new iteration or a new edition of the same stuff, like music, how music has gone through. So I think it'll still be basically communication. It'll just change its diapers, or change its outer clothing or its the styles of the modes. But there's still people will always have to communicate. I was reading a book. I have the computer how the computer age in robotics is going to displace labor, and how that was predicted. And you had like the pros and cons, and then you had people debating whether or not they could ever really truly displace the humans and the labor areas. Like the automobile, 70 to 80% of our automobiles are made by robotics now, but there's still 20 to 25, 30% humans in that process. But it's none of the heavy lifting; it's all the decision making. Because one thing that computers can't do is make decisions when something goes wrong. It'll win Jeopardy games now. It'll win chess games, but if it's trying to produce something and something happens, it will stop, because it's been designed not to go on and continue on a mistake, not to make an injury worse, but to stop. So what they're saying now is that until they can have the ability to dialogue, so the computer says, hey, boss, I got a problem. This is the problem. What should I do? I'm waiting 20 seconds before I shut down. Let me know. So they're saying, so I don't think you're ever going to see humans get taken out of the equation. But they're certainly not going to do any of the manual labors or any of the stuff. So when it comes to selling, when it comes to making decisions, the human brain is still outdoing the robots. And so I think we'll always have a place. I think communication will constantly change, like fads and like as far as not using words and telepathy. Wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, probably will be. So here's a question for you. Let's just say you got a youngster coming to you that's just getting in the industry, or somebody. What is the one book on communication that you would recommend? One sales book, one book on communication you would recommend to somebody that maybe is great technically, but is lacking in communication skills?
I don't know if I'd have just one book. I'd certainly say, the things that talk about, I think what do you call its name, comes to mind, Oren Klaff.
That's what I was going to say. Pitch anything, man.
Because he talks about the brain, and the brain, the lizard brain and the crocodile brain, and how, you have ancient parts of the brain that they control life and death. They control, the shutdown. They're the ones that were looking for something new, sexy. If they can't eat it, then they want to procreate with it or run from it because it's going to eat them. So, I mean, we're talking real primitive things that still are the basis of our decision-making process.
Well, yeah, I think what you're saying, Kenny, is that part of the brain actually makes the decisions, and then the logical brain justifies it. Okay, so I think what Oren Klaff, which, by the way, I completely agree. I've read probably every sales book there is, and I think this guy is the most dialed in, Kenny, of anybody that I've dealt with. But he's basically saying you have to get around that part of the brain, or at least bring it into the process. And it's a brilliant book. Pitch anything by Oren Klaff. I completely agree with you, Kenny. I totally recommend that. What about, in your opinion, like, a classic like Dale Carnegie, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Do you think that's still relevant in today's marketplace?
To a certain extent, yes. But again, like you said, you used to have to go through cold calling. You used to have a lot of human-to-human interactions that now don't exist. So the conduit, now you're doing, so many webinars and collaboration where you're adding to a body of work that's already been done, and you're just adding something to it. You're not doing the old-fashioned stuff where you're the appearance and some of he did really basic stuff, and that was your posture, your inflection. You did routines. You did oratory skills. Because you made the assumption that you were going to talk to people for you're going to have a chance to do a pitch or whatever. Where now that whole concept, the time has shrunk down. You don't do that anymore. You don't meet everywhere. There's no more travel to Chicago and then you're going to do this. You're going to do it from your computer. So you better be good at the skills to communicate via the computer than versus the face to face. So the person.
Well, yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I was sort of going with that. I think one of the big premises of his book is, if you want to get ahead in life, find out what other people are trying to accomplish, help them accomplish what they're trying to do. Marshall Thurber used to say it's much more important. One of my teachers used to say it's much more important to be interested than interesting. And I'm just sort of wondering if you think those sort of ethics, if you will, for lack of a better word, are going to be maintained sort of going forward. Meaning, in other words, do you think people understand the law of reciprocality where, if I want you to help me, I'm going to offer to help you and try to help you get what you want. And through that, you would,
well, human nature being what it is, I'd say sure. I'd say that polite people will always have a certain advantage over impolite people. I think givers get. I really believe in that universal laws that nature abhors a vacuum. So when something moves out, something moves in. Every door opening is a door closing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if human skills will always be fundamental because at some point in time, it's what it's all about.
Yeah. So those ethics that's sort of ingrained human wise. Okay. So our listeners and viewers out there might be wondering, what the heck are you guys talking about? Why are you talking about this? Well, we're going to get off of it right now, but nothing, no control ever gets calibrated or installed or troubleshot until somebody sells the system. And I guess we're just went off a little tirade about that, how important it is to communicate and make sure that that person in the chain gets their due and is critical.
Well, I think just my summary on that would be: you said, is that skill going to be required? And I say absolutely. Is the tools of that skill being changing? Yes, it's evolving constantly, but will it ever go away? I highly doubt it because there's nothing to replace it. So, communication skills are just they're you can't ever expect. It's just not static. I think we're talking about evolving and everything, and I think the good people constantly move forward. Like musicians, I think some of the most incredible musicians were the ones that could last every season. They had a new style, a new album, and then they lasted 10, 15 years. When you compare the great oldie groups that actually and artists like Madonna, whether you liked her or not, or Prince, a lot of people didn't particularly, it wasn't their cup of tea, but I'll tell you what, those were the ones that really impressed me because every time they came out, they changed something. They upgraded to the current trends. They understood what the people wanted to hear again. And that's the real talent is to stay current and produce value to people that need it. So.
Yeah, dude, I tell you what, and just sort of one last thing, back when I was on the road, and, I spent probably 15 years on the road, every day being out making calls. And back in the day, dude, it was cold calling. You could drop me in any city in the United States, and without a GPS, without a phone book, within an hour, I would know where the local school board was, the hospitals, and the contractors. They were just sort of located in certain parts of the city, and I could get into any account. I mean, I would walk into a hospital, man. I had a whole technique with the hospital. I go through the back door and through the equipment room. I'd look around. I see what system they had, what thermostat they had on the wall. I go up to the office, engineered office, and if I saw Johnson Controls thermostat, I go, I'm here to talk to the chief engineer. What do you want to talk about? Well, the Johnson Controls, of course. Don't you recognize me? And before you know it, they're coming out. So I could get in to see anybody. And that was a skill that was required back in those days. But dude, you can't do that anymore. I go traipsing around through a mechanical room, without a badge or whatever. I'm getting thrown in jail or shot, right?
Yeah, it has changed.
All right, but we had some control stuff this week. What did we have up, Kelly?
We sure did. Well, the first thing we had was a National Cyber Awareness System. Again, this week, cybersecurity, vulnerabilities, cyber terrorism, cyber attacks are paramount to our world now, and again, several posts to reflect that. This is a release bulletin from August 10th, and what we're learning about is that the information that we seek is available if we go to the right sources, and this is the two major sources: is the U.S. CERT. And that is the Computer Emergency Response Team, and also the National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center. So, and they publish daily updates on vulnerabilities and people that are making patchwork to improve their security. They came out with an explanation of their vulnerabilities: high, medium, low. Vulnerabilities that are high severity is if they have a CVSS space score of 7 to 10. Medium is 4 to 6.9, and low is from 0 to 3.9. Now, that doesn't mean anything until you start reading what those patches actually mean and who's involved. So every day there's a vendor putting out information that improves their security, whether it's Dell, Cisco, everybody is doing it. And so General Healthcare, Garrett.com. So, and every day they do it, they send it to these two agencies, and then the agencies post them for dissemination. So we're learning more and more about the cybersecurity world. This is certainly two great sources. You can sign up and register for US CERT, and they will send you this on a daily basis.
Or you can just wait for the man, the myth, the legend to tell you what you need to be paying attention to, because Kenny's staying on top of this.
Well, and Fred Gordy's certainly helping us.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Eric, the second application we're talking about, actually the first application of this week, is Sierra Monitor's featured application, the Data Center Monitoring. And these guys are really, really good at it. They're experts. And, if there's one area that they feel very comfortable and can help our Control Trends community, is about data centers. Because we all know what data centers have in it. They have that critical information that is up there, now is in a cloud or maybe a local data center. But you have redundant or backup power supplies that are required. You have data communication connections. You have environmental controls, the air conditioning, gas detection, fire suppression, and physical access controls into these areas. And to do that without knowing a lot about it could bring yourself some unintended and unwanted consequences. So there's a great review from the energy management and automation side of it, the communication side of it. So please visit this this post, because it gives you the background to it, and it gives you some examples of where the SMC, Sierra Monitor Corp's applications have helped a very, very large, important Johnson Controls Dallas used it for a State Farm Insurance data center. You have Alcon Novartis data centers, that a Swiss company that's using the SMC products. Zonotherm is using a field server as part of their data center commissioning project. And there's a lot to learn and remember about gas hazards in general. That people don't realize that you've got lead-powered, lead acid batteries release hydrogen, and you got to be very, very conscientious about that. It's a possible explosive, volatile area. Generators that run on diesel fuel, obviously produce a lot of toxic gases. So, great post. Everybody should take a chance, or if you take an opportunity to read that and get updated. And of course, SMC sells some great products. So.
Well, they do. Sierra Monitor. That's our friend Varun Najara, the CEO, and I guess they're about due to have another one of their shows coming out here, Kenny. Network Conversations with Varun, and what a great show that is. Great feedback on that. So Varun, if you're listening, we appreciate it. This is one of the guys, Kenny, that I'm talking about, just a fantastic communicator. This guy reached out to us and has great products, but Varun, especially on this particular show he's doing, I think you get a feel for just a great communicator. I mean, he's very conversational, very knowledgeable. He has a way of taking the complex and making it understandable. So looking forward to that next networking show with Varun Najara, the CEO of Sierra Monitor. And also want to thank Sierra Monitor. They're a platinum sponsor for the 2015 Control Trends Awards, which will be held the Sunday night before AHR at the Hard Rock Live. So, Kenny, it's going to be big times down there, and it's people like Varun and the folks at Sierra that make that happen. So we really do appreciate that. And sort of getting back to data centers, one last follow-up on data centers, Kenny, which is we're getting through Control Trends to know a lot of our integrators do data center work and are very good at it. I know our friend Big Poppy from Hepta Systems, Ted Houck and Jason Houck, do a lot of data centers. So does our friend Rick Warner, who we hadn't heard from in a while. So what's the name of Rick's company again? Because you know Rick a lot longer than I have. Super sharp guy.
O&M Facility.
Yeah, O&M Facility. So check those guys out. So, Rick, if you're listening, the Control Trends audience is missing you too, buddy. We got to get you back on the show, man. Remember we had him, I guess it was last year, we had a series of 4 or 5 episodes with Rick coming on.
Well, he wasn't the Terminator. He was what? He was the...
Oh, he wasn't the Terminator. He was the innovator. The innovator.
Yeah. Yep. It's... He's O&M engineering, and I know they've been busy, and they moved recently. So, in all fairness to Rick, he's still staying busy. He was out there at the RoyalCom IBCom show, and I just think when business is good, your time becomes scarce. So,
well, yeah, it's like we have to tell people all the time. Sometimes we're not able to hit it on, and what a lot of people may not realize is this is not our day job. Both Kenny and I work 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it takes. We're both distributors in the building automation controls and HVAC controls industry. So this is sort of a labor of love after hours in between work and our wives not wanting to beat us up too much. My wife accused me a lot of time, Kenny, of loving you more than I love her. Whatever does Rita ever do that to you?
I don't think she's put it in those terms, but she wants to know what we're doing all the time.
Yeah.
How's that helping and everything? And No, I tell her it's one and the same. That's one thing we did know, that this is a complementary effort. The more time we spend on control trends and the more time we spend in the industry, obviously a residual benefit is that we're smarter as distributors and keeping constant tweaking our own little businesses, because we know now exactly what not to put the chips on, what's going to be phased in, phased out, and what technologies, what trends are affecting our business. So what could be a better way to spend your time?
Completely agree, Kenny. And boy, has it been eye-opening for you? I mean, just because you and I were sort of came up with the traditional sort of route, and I think there's still a lot of people that are sort of hooked into this, where you're sort of relying on the manufacturer and your customers to tell you what's going on, right? And it's just been so enlightening to me when you get to meet different people, not just from around the United States, but from around the world. It paints a little bit different picture, doesn't it, Kenny?
Well, sure. Just like you had proprietary software and proprietary protocols, you had proprietary conversations, and things were done behind the curtains that you didn't know, and you didn't really want to know, or you didn't have to know. But now, like you said, you cannot rely on not knowing. Things like the Realcomm, IBCOM show basically opened up that whole curtain, and we said, oh my gosh, here are the people that are buying these products, and they're saying we're not listening to them, and then, so that was a major revelation. Social media, if I wouldn't have been involved in this, I wouldn't even have a website, still probably, because I just, I don't, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But then we saw so many of our products quickly fade away and became commodity items, and the internet changed our business like overnight. And if we had not made taken that energy and those resources and put them on a different checker or different square, those checkers would have been trumped and taken from us. So I think it's been just an absolute bonus and benefit to be involved in what we're doing, because I feel a lot more confident about, there's not going to be many things that are going to surprise us. It's still a challenge. I mean, it doesn't make it any easier. Still, like you said, the time being spent is not, shortened. It's that where you're spending the time is producing more value.
Well, no, I completely agreed. And obviously, Kenny and I love it because we're passionate about controls and we're passionate about the industry. And I think it's just a huge bonus for us is we've just met so many incredible people. And I think if that's a common denominator, Kenny, they're just really amazing people in our industry. And, as one of my teachers, Marshall Thurber, used to say that, when you're working in the business, you can't really work on it. And where I think and what he basically means by that, and I think you just gave a great example of it, we all get so busy with the day-to-day stuff that we really don't have time to take a step back to see what's really going on. It's a little bit like, you're driving your car, you get your face right up against the windshield, you're looking 2 cars ahead, because that's all you can focus on when you're driving at the speeds that most of us go at. And I think what we're trying to do at Control Trends is sort of take a look maybe 15 cars down the road to see where things are going. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Kenny and I have got that dialed in, but that's what we're attempting to do. And I just think by doing Control Trends, we've at least got the head up a little bit where we can see farther down the road and see things coming. So it's and like we've said on the show, it's fascinating times, a lot of cool stuff that's going on. So,
we see major movements like the collaboration movement, the Young Guns, and like you said, I think we're doing some documentation, some very important, necessary documentation. We started somewhere. I mean, we can't go back and start any earlier than we did. So fortunately, we're starting to put down a digital track record and documentation that's going to lead into something that hopefully that moves on long after we're dead and buried, that we're putting something in place that's important because our industry has been a lot of selfless acts. A lot of people have done entire careers and made some incredible gains in technology and just haven't been recognized for it because there was no media to do that. There was no show. There was no forum. There was no Control Trends Awards every year. But now, and every year we get to improve it and enlarge it. So I think what we're leaving behind is a great documentation of our legacies. Some of the really important people that we had the pleasure to know and work with, whether it was Werner Buck, whether it was Jerry Frank, the people that took an industry and put it on a different set of tracks, changed technology or used the applied technology that really made major difference, changed the way business was being done from 1 year to the next or from 5 years to the next.
I completely agree, Ken. And I think we hit it at the right time because, you and I have both been in the industry about 30, 35 years, and I got to tell you, things have changed more in the last 5 years than they did in the previous 30 years for me. It used to be like, say, a product could come out and it might have a 15, 20-year life cycle. You learned it, and you were golden for the next 15 to 20 years, and now you're lucky if a product lasts 15 to 20 months before it's updated or changed or the technology's changed. So I think one of the things we're also trying to accomplish at Control Trends, especially with Control Talk Now, is to sort of be that thing. If you do it once a week, you listen to the podcast or the video cast, gives you an idea of what Kenny and I are saying as we lift up and look down the road, which hopefully will be useful to you. So I guess with that, Kenny, what else do we have on the website this week?
We have a very important release from Niagara AX. Updates are available. Versions 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8 are affected, and the new updated releases are available for download on Niagara Central. These updates include important enhancements that increase the security of the Niagara AX system, including a newer revision of the Java virtual machine. Vicon strongly encourages all customers to update Niagara AX to one of the newly available releases. And again, part of the Fred Gordy gospel is, these are what makes all the difference in the world. Get those updates, get those patches, so that you've got the best security that these important manufacturers and software manufacturers like Niagara make. When we come to the next Fred Gordy's post here later on, that'll make a lot more sense. This post here about being urgently, what they call general relentless pressure. You can't let up. You don't want to overwhelm anybody, but listen, get it done, because there's important reasons why everybody has taken these additional measures to upgrade their security.
Well said, Kenny. That's very useful information. So appreciate that. And let's just move right along. What do we have next?
All right, next up, Eric, we have 30 Minutes with LinkSpring. This is part of their webinar series that they began a while back, and this is going to be for August 19th. We have the registration hot button, so you can sign up for it. It's going to be presented by Chris Ryan, LinkSpring's head of professional services, and this is kind of cool because we were talking about this. In other words, sales is so important that even in some of the books that we've been reading recently, they can't overemphasize how difficult sales are. Everybody makes it look. If you're really good, you make it look easy, and people think you're wasting a lot of company time and money. But actually, sales are critical. So much, in fact, that LinkSpring is going to include these topics on Chris's next presentation: pre-sale support, post-sale support, engineering services, customer service, and technical support, training, on-site commissioning. So good stuff from LinkSpring. You have to sign up and register for it, so you might have to be one of their VARs before you can take access to this good information. So
well, and of course, Chris Ryan, one of our young guns from last year. He's
sure
one of the youngsters that was a young gun. And LinkSpring, great company. Check him out. Our Master of Ceremonies at the Control Trends Awards. Hi, Mark Peacock. Is Mark Peacock, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at LinkSpring. So I suspect, Kenny, that we could probably get Mark to have us get Chris on maybe for a little round table discussing LinkSpring's views on that. So we'll see if we can set that up. But in the meantime, if you're lucky enough to be a LinkSpring partner, check that out. LinkSpring has their big conference coming up, Kenny. I think it's in the end of October in Kansas City. So we talked about that last week. So it's in the notes. But just to mention that again, and we'll hopefully both you and I will be out there covering that conference, Kenny. All right, Big
Sounds
Dog.
good, Eric.
What do we have up next?
Next up, we have What Makes a Company Great. It starts with their philosophy. And this was a great post that you put up when you were talking to Una DeBoer, the Director of Marketing for Delta Controls. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that post and tell us a little bit about Una?
Well, Una, Kenny, you and I both are big Una DeBoer fans. So, Una, hopefully you're listening. We met Una, I think, 2 years ago. We were covering Realcomm, Imacom. We were going around with our cameras doing the interviews, and this very attractive woman comes up and says, "What are you guys doing?" And you and I think we're about to get thrown out of the facility, right? And we told her we're doing an interview. She said, "Well, you need to come over here and interview us." And so we did our first interview with Delta Controls and Copper Tree Analytics. They're both owned by the same people. And Una, since then, has come on as a platinum sponsor for the Control Trends Awards. She's a platinum sponsor again this year, so we really appreciate Delta Controls and Copper Tree Analytics for that. And Kenny, I'm just a big Una DeBoer fan. I think she's bright. I accuse her of being a thought leader in our industry, and she let me know that she does not consider herself a thought leader, but I think she's brilliant. This was an article I found that, Kenny, that she did on LinkedIn about doing it right, and she's talking about how Delta Controls goes about their business, if you will, and how they their employees are motivated to do the right thing. We also included a really great video that includes two of the principals at Delta Controls. So that prompted me, and the post, the body of the post is just a copy of what Una wrote on LinkedIn, but it prompted me to think about and wonder, where do great companies start? What is it that makes them different? And I think after watching the video and reading Una's post, that I would say it starts with the thing that all great companies have in common is they all have a great philosophy that's understood by their team, their employees, their customers, and their vendors, and they live out of that. I think this is a great example, so I encourage you to check it out.
Well, I'll tell you what, Delta Controls is a very impressive organization, and I really like the idea of philosophy because, I've been in different organizations, and you can't really, if you don't have a good foundation and you don't like your job and you don't really enjoy it. As she says, nobody wakes up thinking I want to do a crappy job today, But she talks about the success, about doing it right and doing it now, and when you have a group of people that feel that way, it changes. It's the nucleus of a successful organization, and I love that stuff. I could listen to it all day. When I was in the Air Force, I think that was why the Air Force always was such a, to me, such an important and the cohesion and collaboration and the strength of so many people doing their jobs well, puts together. It's like a football team, a perfect play that executes. It goes for a touchdown. Everybody blocks their guy. The fakes are done correctly. Everybody carries out the fake, and just one or two people that were supposed to watch that fake go the wrong way for a step or two, and next we got a touchdown, and it's all because of the execution. Well, I think that applies to our organizations as well, and certainly it does with Delta Controls, and Una documents that very well. So she says after 20 years, nothing's old. Everything's exciting, and she loves the job and the environment, and she's joined by many of her colleagues, so that's great.
All right, Kenny, listen, I there's a trend that's going on here, control trends. You probably used about 10 or 15 football metaphors since the show has started. I'm assuming that the Steelers are looking pretty good this year.
Well, if the Vikings 14-3 ass whooping over the Steelers, but it was it was preseason. I'll tell you what, it was hard to watch. It was just one mistake after another on both teams, but there's so much talent on those fields. You just wonder how good it's going to be. And we're seeing all these old timers coming back, and then you're getting some of the guys that were in the they were grounded because of social woes or personal woes or drug woes or whatever. We're coming back this year, and you're going to see some great football.
Yeah, just for any of our college student football players that might get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, using marijuana while you're driving a car is not legal in Pittsburgh, no matter what they tell you. So you will get fined and in trouble, but.
Well, it doesn't seem to bother the Steelers. They don't mind a couple game suspension here and there. Maybe but it's without pay.
I heard Lawrence Timmons, the linebacker for the Steelers, just totally laid a guy out in that preseason. They were talking about that down here in Atlanta on the sports radio stations down here about Lawrence Timmons put on this Minnesota Viking.
Well, I tell you what, He's a monster, and I'll tell you, it's one thing the Steelers always have had is a strong linebacker core, and they're all just we got a guy from Georgia.
Yeah, Jarvis Jones. How's he going to do for you guys? How's he doing?
Well, he's so big and fast. People don't realize how big he is because he's so fast. And we got another guy from your conference, I believe that I haven't seen him play yet. And to be quite honest with you, I listened to it. I didn't see it, so I can't say that I saw the whole game. I saw parts of it, and what I saw maybe turned it off. So, but you're right. Steelers are going to have a good season. The controversy raging with Brady was on news last night again. So yeah, I do have football in the brain, and it's because fantasy football league's kicking in. Now I don't know if you play or not. I don't think you do.
No.
But you got to be ready because the drafts are coming, and if you don't do your homework, you're going to have a lousy season. So get on the stick.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you. What do we have up next, big dog?
Well, it's another important post, and we're talking about Niagara and their patches and why it's so important you do it. And you mentioned back last show, I remember listening to it, and you said there's like when Niagara Fork comes out with its most comprehensive version of Niagara yet, and it has these. A lot of the applications that are coming now from third parties are going to be incorporated with data aggregation, data visualization, energy dashboards, sparking, and that sort of stuff. I wanted to give you an answer to that. I just wanted to show you that it won't put everybody else out of business for sure. And the reason why is because some people have to take these particular applications to another dimension. And here's one on lighting that I never understood how complicated and how intensely engrossed you can get into a lighting application, because it involves so many different things. This was the overview of the article. I just wonder if I can show up on the camera.
Yeah, it's showing up pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad.
Well, and this is written by Patricia Andrasic, and she's a AIA, IIDA, lead, BD plus C, lead O&M, and she does, her profession is building performance analytics. Now, this can get so complicated, Eric, that you have like general factors, you have climate factors, you have solar potential factors and thermal factors, and this is just for lights. This is just for taking light harvesting to the next level. But you have to understand, where you're at, your geography, your zonal studies, your microclimate studies, comfort zone, peak average, solar radiation. Your general, you go into your windows, your glazing, your construction, your occupancy schedules, thermal material values, overall insulation, shading, overall airflow, thermal. So what this is if you were trying to do something this challenging, you would probably want the benefit of a more serious application that would still be used with your Niagara. But what the difference is, and I have a better answer, is that a lot of the things that your basic needs are going to be provided for it. So for the people that want to know what's so important about Niagara 4, one of the things is this upgraded security, the enhanced security. And two is that you get a base load of features and benefits that are unparalleled for the single purchase.
Way cool. Way cool.
Alrighty. So because I remember I don't like to answer things without having some understanding what I'm saying, right? That's always a good idea.
That's one of the differences between me and you. I have no problem at all answering questions that I don't understand at all. That's the thing that makes us good together.
This is Fred Gordy's post, and again, this made me think, because we're now, we had to post last week everything you wanted to know about BACnet, but we're afraid to ask.
Yeah.
So we're seeing now that we're learning a little bit about our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and by doing so, we're creating the fundamental steps to improve our situation. And the first important thing is physical steps and awareness. So this is Fred's post.
And real quick, Kenny, just in case some of our listeners or viewers out there might not know who Fred Gordy is. Fred is probably one of the brightest, hardest working, most humble, most informed guys that we know vis-a-vis cybersecurity. He was with the systems integrator here in Atlanta. That's where we got to know him. He now works for a company called SmartCore, which is even a bigger systems integrator. And Fred is very passionate about cybersecurity and very knowledgeable. And he's based here in Atlanta, so we have become fortunate for us, affiliated with Fred. And so at Control Trends, we think he has a very, very important message to share with the community. And so that's sort of the backdrop about what Kenny's getting ready to tell you about.
Well, sure, and his experience includes, his portfolios include, military bases. He has national retail chains. They have internet data centers. I mean, they've got the big stuff. International media companies, REITs, research labs, and he also has a very close affiliation with the Georgia Tech Research Institute, and that brings big guns. And so what happens now is Fred is taking he's pulling back the curtain on center stage, and he does an actual demonstration about scary statistics. And he said that the disclaimer is that it's not the intent of this post to point out particular BS software vendors or the intent not to scare people. It's to show that systems integrators still have a lot of work to do, because here was a current post from August 13th, 2015. It didn't cost any money. He didn't have to use any special query languages, just plain old English. He goes to the site at www.shodan.io and typed in a particular software name. Then he creates a report. He clicks on United States. He downloads it, and it showed the number of systems that were exposed. 27,182 systems were exposed in the United States. So it's an average of 540 exposed systems per state. And the leading states were Houston, Chicago, or cities, I guess now. I'm sorry, top 5 cities. So I was Houston, Chicago, Denver, Seattle, Indianapolis. And so what happens is that the only thing that prevents this thing from being hacking is a username and password to the station. So what he's saying is that of these stations, the most incredible thing was that they are running old versions of Microsoft and don't have Microsoft's most recent security versions on them. In fact, a lot of them were Windows XP or Windows 7. Support ended for Windows XP on April 8th, 2014, and support ends for Windows 7 January 13th. The mainstream support for Windows 7 ended January 13th, 2015. Windows 8 still has support for a few years, but the most important thing that Fred said is that we're not forcing people to upgrade and take this thing more seriously, because the first thing you need to do is upgrade your Windows operating system, and then the second thing you need to do is upgrade your Niagara X and put in those dang patches. Let's get with the program, people. Come on. So other than that, it's business as usual. Some great some great presentations. Talk about graphics. There's nothing better to make you feel a little bit more nervous about things than seeing a graphic depiction of a problem like this. So it's a great post. Thanks, Fred. And that wraps us up, Eric.
Well, it does, and I just will mention that we mentioned last week, and we'll continue to mention, because I think it's a very, very important event. Fred, along with Mark Peacock and some others, are putting together a cybersecurity conference coming up in Atlanta that Control Trends is going to help promote, and it's going to be cybersecurity for the BAS professional, the Building Automation Control Specialist, because cybersecurity is such a broad field, and they're going to put together a program that is going to be geared just for the people with building automation. So I think it's well needed, well deserved. I think it's March 21st
through the 23rd.
March 21st through the 23rd in Atlanta, Georgia. So mark your calendar for that. More information will be coming, but this is going to be a spectacular event. So good stuff, Kenny Smyers. Well, listen, buddy, that's it. That wraps up another week on Control Talk Now, your Smart Buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending August 16th, 2015. My name is Eric Stromquist, and I have been joined, as usual, by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers. So with that, we will bid you adieu and tell you to have a great week. And remember, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. It's amazing how our guests have so much trouble with that. But hey, what can I say?